when I sat down and I added up all my recurring expenses, I was spending $25,000 a month. Like, I blew my own mind when I figured that out. I'm like, what is happening here? Like,
whoa, yeah, Tell them I want it in cash, I don't care if it's ones, I don't never take checks. Tell them I paid all my dues and I didn't pay taxes, but pay me respect. I've been in this shit for too long, I know ins, I know outs, I know where they can lag. I broke down the door, I pursued it. Can't no one stop what I'm moving. Can't no one stop what I'm moving. Already did what you doing. Already proved what you proving.
So basically, I want to be able to explain to the artists, the entrepreneurs, or just people in general, how do we become financially free? Because a lot of people don't know step one. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I'm here with my team right now, and this is just as much for them as it is for you guys, you know, watching the channel. But I really want people to understand step one, because being financially free, being wealthy, is really a balance. It's really all about balance, right? And so to just get into it, the first thing you need to understand to become financially free, and Jazz, you can please, you know, write this down, is you need to understand your cash flow. Meaning, how much am I making a month versus how much am I spending a month? So you take your recurring bills, right? Your recurring expenses. This is, you know, light bill, rent, car note, you know, groceries. Like, am I spending $250 a week on groceries? So that's $1,000 a month. Like, how much am I spending on a recurring basis? You take that, and that's your outgoing, that's your expenses. And then you also take how much am I making a month. So if I'm making $5K a month, but I'm spending $3K a month, and now I know my cash flow is $2,000, right? That's what we need to know. We need to know ingoing, outgoing. And a lot of times what happens is people aren't even aware of their balance sheet. They're not even aware of their cash flow. And so, and literally this was me in 2018, when I sat down and I added up all my recurring expenses, I was spending $25,000 a month. Like, I blew my own mind when I figured that out. I'm like, what is happening here? Like, $25,000 a month was my recurring expenses in 2018. Wow. And so immediately I cut that down to $11,000. You know what I mean? Like, I cut it in more than in half. So taking, you know, Cam, when you go home, like, you really need to do this. You need to add up all of your recurring expenses, and then also look at how much am I making a month. You know what I mean? And once you do that, you'll understand your cash flow. The second thing you need to do once you understand that number is you need to begin to understand the concept of paying yourself first. Like, that is the next concept you have to understand. So for instance, if I'm only making $1,000 a month, right? You know, I need to be taking, let's say 10%, $100 from that right off the top and putting it into a savings account. You know what I mean? Because, and you know, I've been dead broke before. I've been months where I couldn't pay my rent. My rent was $300. I've had those months, right? So, but if you understand, if I'm only making $1,000 a month, the difference between $1,000 and $900, they're practically the same. So me paying myself first that $100, I'm not really even going to feel that, because if I only got $1,000, me only having $900, I'm in the same position. I'm in the same predicament, except for the difference is I've now paid myself first. I've now saved $100. You know what I mean? And when I look up in a year and I'm like, I only make $1,000 a month, but I got $1,200 in my savings account, like, that's a good feeling. That's a great feeling. So you need to understand the concept of paying yourself. I don't care how little you make, and I don't care how big your bills are. Pay yourself first. Once you get into that habit, you won't miss it. You won't think about it. Take 10% out of everything you make, and immediately it goes into the savings account. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to build an emergency fund. You know what I mean? So you're paying yourself first to build into your emergency fund. And an emergency fund is 3 to 6 months of that number that you came up with. That recurring expenses, I need 3 to 6 months of that in my savings account. That is my emergency fund. So my recurring expenses, again, if I'm spending $3,000 a month, then you times that times 3, 9,000, or you times 6, 18,000. I need to be paying myself until I reach that emergency fund, right? So once we reach that emergency fund, we'll get into that later. But right now, my main goal is filling that emergency fund 3 to 6 months of my recurring expenses. So if if anything happens to my income, I'm safe for a few months, or I'm safe for 6 months. All right, now the next thing we need to talk about is debt. You know what I mean? We got credit card bills, we got etc. Whatever you know. Maybe our car note or our mortgage. The thing about debt is, many of you probably heard the difference between good debt and bad debt, or at least you've heard that term before. So here's the difference between the main key difference is how much is that interest rate. For debt, anything interest rate, anything over 6%, you need to get rid of that debt. If it's over 6%, do not, like, I'm talking about if you got a car and your interest rate is over 6%, you need to find a way to get out of that car. You know what I mean? If you got a credit card and that interest rate is over 6%, now you can't control your credit card interest rate. It's always going to be high, but you need to pay it off every month down to, you have to have some sort of balance on there if you're trying to build your credit. So like, for instance, I have a credit card, my balance is $1,000. This month I'm going to pay $990. Just so I had that little money there, just to show that I'm actively using. Because if you pay it all the way off, there's a key note. If you pay your credit card all the way off, it's going to show as non-active. So you always want to leave a little something, a $5, a $10. Just that 6% is costing you money. You know what I mean? Like so, for instance, once you start to, like, this is going to be further down the line, but once you start to understand the cost of money, there's a cost to money. So for me, I'll give you a perfect example. If I have a house and my interest rate is 6%, you know, my monthly bill on that home, maybe, I'm just making something up, maybe $1,800, right? If I'm going to pay this house off early, let's say the house is $200,000. If I'm going to pay this house off early, like right now, I have $200,000 cash, but my interest rate is only 3%. I would lose more money paying this house off than I could make with that money. So if I could take that $200,000 and invest it in a stock market, which gives me an annual 10%, versus taking it and paying this off, which the interest rate is only 3%, I'm losing money paying this house off. But if the interest rate is above 6%, I'm losing money not paying it off. It's a really delicate balance. It's all about the cost of money. You know what I mean? Most investments make you above 6%. You know what I mean? Versus an interest rate that's lower than 6%, I would lose money paying that off. I'm better off just letting that ride and just paying the monthly payments, because the amount of the cash that I paid it off with, I could have used that cash to go and make more money than it would have costed me to pay it off. But that's when we get into investing. Like right now, I'm not trying to have you invest. I'm trying to get you financially free to the point where you can invest. Because the first step is getting debt free. That's really step one. All right, so what does this look like, right? So if you are in a debt situation to where you can't get out of it and it's more than 6%, what you want to do is sort of front load that particular piece of debt. So for instance, if I'm only making $1,000 a month, I'm putting $100 into my savings account. I'm paying myself first, and then I'm taking the next $100 and I'm paying off this debt. Once you pay that debt off, you roll that $100 into the next piece of debt. Like you literally never stop. You never stop spending that money. You just roll it over. So like once I'm like, let's say I pay off one credit card and I had an extra $100 a month. No, you don't have an extra $100 a month. You take that same $100 that you were putting into that and you roll it into the next thing. And this is how you eventually get out of debt. You have to set your recurring bills somewhere, right? So when I first come up with that number, like when I locked in $11,000, I didn't let it exceed that. You know what I mean? So if you get money free from paying something off, you don't now add to your cash flow, like, oh, now I have this much more cash flow. No, you keep that same regimen, you just move it over to the next piece of debt. You know what I mean? And that's how you eventually pay off all your debt. But trust me, if it's over 6%, find a way to get out of it. Now, once you have all of this in order, you're starting to understand finances. You're starting to see, you know, what it takes to get you to that place where you're financially free. What does financially free mean? That means you're out of the system of living check to check. That's really what financial freedom is, you know what I mean? And then what does building wealth means? That just means how long does my money last before I have to have new income come in. You know what I mean? I gave the example of I have $100,000 and my recurring expenses is $1,000, then $1,000, then that lasts me 100 months. You know what I mean? That's a great example of wealth. So once you get into this space where I have my emergency fund stacked up, I'm out of debt. Then you get to the question Jasmine asked. Then it's like, what do I do with this extra cash? So like, for instance, in that same example, I'm making $1,000 a month. I was using 100 to pay myself, and I was using 100 to pay off my debt. Now I'm in that space to where everything's paid off. Now what do I do?